All right, I'm going to sound really cheesy today on the episode because I'm going to be talking about podcasting visions, but it's not quite what you think. I'm not going to tell you that you can be an entrepreneur. I'm not going to tell you that you can retire to live on a beach with your laptop or that you can get $1 bazillion in sponsorship after about 15 episodes. No. I'm not going to talk to you about any of that today. But what I'm going to talk to you about is something that I believe is very, very important and something that I talk about with everyone at Captivate, everyone at podcast websites, everyone that works with rebel-based media in some depth. So I'm going to get to that in 1 second. This, of course, is the Podcast Accelerator. Welcome to the show today. I'm Mark Asquith, that British podcast guy and CEO and founder here at Rebel-Based Media, where we make such podcasting goodness as podcast websites, the managed WordPress platform just for podcasters, the Podcast Success Academy, where we help you to launch and grow your podcast, and a little bit of technology called Productivity, which is going to be a lot of fun over the next 6 to 8 months. And of course, Captivate.fm, the world's only growth-oriented podcast host, where you can host multiple shows for one monthly cost. Go and check it out. 7 days completely for free at Captivate.fm. So, like I said, I'm going to talk about podcasting visions, which sounds very, very fluffy, sounds very, very woolly, sounds like something that you'd hear a guru say. Well, I am absolutely not a guru. In fact, if anyone calls me a guru, I'll probably quit. And that cues up Evo on Twitter calling me a guru just so I quit. Well, I'm sorry. Anyone but Evo. Or anyone but Evo and anyone commissioned by Evo to tell me that I'm a guru just so I quit. Sorry, bro. Much love. Now, it's very important that podcasting visions exist. I'm just gonna dig into that in a moment because it's something that I never really thought about in the early days of my show. But as I kind of developed everything that I've developed with Rebel-Based Media, I've always had a vision and I've always formalized it. And it was always something that felt really, really loose. And I didn't think that was a bad thing, but I was kind of told that it was a bad thing. So I'm gonna kind of just demystify some of this stuff and discuss exactly what I mean by a podcasting vision. I'm just gonna give a quick shout out to AWeber, of course. 10 seconds on the fact that they help me with my email marketing. They help me to tell you when a new episode launches. They help me to gather replies from you and help me to shape the show by answering questions from people like Felicia and Annette and Raf and Arnie. Just amazing people that listen to this show, and I couldn't do any of it without AWeber because they make it easy for me to get into your inbox and give you what you need, okay? So thank you to AWeber. You can go and check them out, actually, for 90 days totally free at markasquith.com/AWeber. So, do you have a podcasting vision? And I don't mean, sure, look, I'm going to have $1 bazillion, quadrillion downloads and be a quote-unquote entrepreneur in about 4 days. I mean an actual brand vision, because that's what you are. You're a brand. As a podcaster, you are a brand, and every brand has a brand vision. Now, let's dive into this, okay? Now, I've always had a vision for Rebel-Based Media. We knew when we did podcast websites that wasn't the end game. The end game was always what we're doing now. It was always to have Rebel-Based Media or a company which was yet to be named. You know, we knew we wanted a parent company that held all of these other companies, podcast websites being one of them, Captivate. We knew we wanted a hosting company, Productivity, this interaction tech that we're building behind the scenes, that it's got a lot of traction behind the scenes, but we don't really publicize at the moment because we're working on some very, very interesting stuff. That was my first ever product. I thought of that 2014, I went to NMX in 2015 just solely to research that, okay? I've got the sketches, I've got the mock-ups, the wireframes, I've got everything on my notepad from April 2015, all right? And I had this vision, and we implemented podcast websites first because it was the easiest to get to market, and it allowed us to walk the beat and listen to the podcasters and get to know them in a very non-threatening way. We weren't a hosting company, so no one really was threatened by us. We did hosting, and it was great, but Libsyn and the crew over there never really saw us as competition because we weren't just selling on the same kind of apples for apples comparison. But we always knew that we would do. We knew that a company like Captivate would then exist, and we had the Academy, and so we had this vision. And when we embarked on this rebrand in October 2018, when we announced all of these things in November, actually, We announced Captivate, we announced the design studio, we announced the Academy, we announced Rebel-Based Media, we announced the studio, we announced all of these different things, boom, 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 in 1 week. None of that was an accident, it was planned. And then I said to the team, we've then got 18 months to rebrand. okay, and to reposition ourselves in the industry. So I said, look, by probably February 2020, we will have repositioned in the industry. We won't just be seen as the web company, we'll be seen as the podcast technology people. And that was in tandem with me rebranding myself as the British podcast guy, okay? And that's worked. You know, we've been invited to Apple. We've been talking to the big players. We get invited to the kind of big events. We talk around industry influence. And that was all because I had a vision. And I didn't know exactly how we were going to implement it. I didn't know when we were going to implement it. I had to work down to the detail, working backwards from that vision. Now, you might be thinking, all right, Marco, look, great stuff, history lesson, that sounds great, but what the hell has it got to do with my podcast? Well, here's what it's got to do with your podcast. Everyone, whether you are a startup, whether you are a media company, whether you're a podcaster, a blogger, or a YouTuber, you have to have a vision. Now, what I'm talking about here is that most people, like I said, they'll listen to a guru online and say, right, okay, look, I'm going to start a podcast, I'm going to grow the podcast, I'm going to retire from my job, because apparently these days having a day job is a really bad thing. I don't really get it, okay? You know, fine, do what you love doing, but don't feel bad about having a day job. Like, that's silly, all right? I've talked about this on the 7-Minute Mentor. So let's not assume that podcasting is the get out of jail free card, because it absolutely is not, okay? Now, when I'm talking about a podcasting vision, instead what I'm talking about is this idea that, do you know what? I need something to measure my decisions against, okay? I need something to say, yes, this is the right decision for my show and my brand. I need something to say, no, this is not the right decision. So is this guest right? Yes or no? Is this sponsor right? Yes or no? Is this idea to build a network right? Yes or no? Is this hosting company right? Yes or no? What is right? What is wrong for my podcast, for my listeners, okay? You can't make those decisions unless you've got a vision. Right, in 3 years' time, I'm going to be the #1 automotive aftermarket podcast network, and people are going to look to me for education in that market so that they can make the decisions in their business based on the best information available to them. That is a vision that my great friend Cam Capriotto from Remarkable Results has, all right? I'm going to be the #1 veteran support network in the US. I'm going to connect one person to the next person, help them from leaving to living when it comes to ending their military career. I'm going to give them the support that they need so that they know exactly where to turn, and tell them the things that no one told me when I left the military. That's my friend's vision, Raf from served.vet, all right? Now, the reason that I'm telling you this is that it would be very, very easy for those two people, Cam and Raf, who are running amazing podcasts and doing amazing work. Honestly, it's fantastic what they're doing over there. But how can they possibly make a decision on whether the editor's right for them if they don't have a vision? Or if the hosting company's right for them? Or if the content's right? Or if the sponsorship's right? Or if the brand is right? If their logo, their ID, their color palette, their messaging, the tonality, their website? How can they make any decisions based on that if they are not crystal clear on what they want their podcast to be? All right? You have to have a vision. You have to have a vision, okay? And it doesn't need to be this big, grand, I'm going to retire when I get to 21 years old based on all of my download numbers and I'm going to drive a Ferrari down the Las Vegas Strip. It doesn't need to be that. It needs to be something specific that's going to help you and your audience to understand where you are in this journey and what path you're taking. So that then when you get faced with a decision, okay, this sponsor wants to sponsor my show, that sounds good. But let's just decide, do they fit the vision? Do they fit the brand? And back to what I used to talk about on the 7-Minute Mentor, the easy decision-making process then becomes, does saying yes to this thing get me one step closer to fulfilling that vision? Because if it does, I'm going to say yes. And if it doesn't, it's unequivocally a no. Okay? So you have to have a podcasting vision, and it's got to be really, really clear. Got to be really, really clear. Okay? It's absolutely vital. Okay? Absolutely vital. So think on that. And if you need a hand, hit me up on Twitter at Mr. Asquith. Let's talk on it. Just let me know what I can do. Hit me up at Mr. Asquith on Twitter. Let me know what you're thinking. I will answer and we can dive into a deep discussion, all right? So listen, thank you for joining me. It's always a pleasure. As normal, I urge you to go and check out Captivate.fm for your podcast hosting needs. In my opinion, it's the world's best podcast host. Do you know why that is? Because it's thoughtful. It was described today by my great friend Russ down in Taunton as the best platform for people looking for outstanding support in their podcast. All right. So Russ, thank you for that, man. And just please go and try it out if you aren't already. Captivate.fm. It's free for 7 days. And until the next time, I appreciate you. I thank you for everything that you do. Much love to everyone that shows up every single time for an episode. And until the next time, never forget, the more you expect from yourself, the more you will Excel.